give you a chance practice for the final. And by what we're going to do is work on that little bit of that Bible database, leaving it to you to finish up some of the queries because I want to focus on what exactly you're going to have to do for the final and a couple of things on the final, maybe like some of the queries we work on. So bring up your Bible database that we worked on last time, and we will bring up the Bible database here in section 1. We'll come back and write some queries that are in the Bible assignment, but first we want to go over what's going to be on your final for Access. So pay attention, and I think you'll do great. First thing you're going to do in the final, you'll be given instructions, and the instructions will say create these 2 tables. Now most databases have more than 2 tables, but we're going to just do the very basics. So we're going to go to create and choose table design. That's the easiest place to go. You'll be given a list of fields in the table, and in this case we're going to create a table of authors of books. So we're going to have a table of books that they wrote, different by different authors, and we're going to have a table of authors. And the reason I chose that particular 2 tables is you have authors, and how are they related? Well, they write certain books. Does one author write one book, or could one author write many books? Typically, an author writes 1 to many books. So that's the relationship here. Rather than when we list a book and list the full name of their author, no, we give the reference to the author's ID, and that author's table contains all their information like their name, address, email, and birthday, and other things about the author. Yes? Okay, hold in the power button.
I just said that. It's going to be saying boot failure detected.
Boot failure detected. That's a real problem. I'd say it's time to use a different computer. And this is where you think, did I have a backup of my Bible database somewhere other than the computer that it's on?
I didn't do the Bible database because I was in the parent.
Okay, well, you just go to a different computer and start a blank database. Sorry that computer just died. It's bound to happen. Don't know what happened. We'll have to ask IT folks to check it out. Good warning for you, have backups of your files. Can't use that one, I guess. So we're going to create a table. Now, we're doing this in the Bible database. We could have started a new blank one, but we're going to hang around and do some other queries in this Bible database, so we're using the same one. So we're creating a table, and it's going to be our authors table. Now, with every table, you usually start out something that's going to be the primary key, and I like to have the primary key named author ID. In Access, they often give you a table that just has ID in it. But I think author ID is a better name because then queries later on become easier to recognize. The data type for the ID, I like to put auto number. Let Access determine the number. This is going to be the primary key, so I click the key. And that now shows a little key there. That will become the primary key. And I'll put in a little description, primary key. And part of the deal with primary keys is they must be unique. You can't refer to an author 10 and not sure which 10 do you mean. It's always a specific unique key. Now, what do we typically want to know about authors? Well, we want to know their last name. And we'll go with the default short text, and we'll do first name. Leave that also short text. And typically with people, you always have a address, short text, city, state, and zip. All the boring short text data type. Now, just for practice, we need an excuse to have something other than the short text data type. And perhaps we want to celebrate their birthday. So let's put birthday and make that. I type D and I see date time. So birthday, that would be good, date time. And suppose they charge a certain amount of rates per hour of work. Let's call it pay rate. Pay rate. Short text wouldn't be good for that one. What would be the appropriate data type for how much they get paid per hour? Well, look at there. We have a currency data type. And let's choose one more. How about their email? Well, let's see. Email could be anything. We'll leave that at short text. How about something more interesting? How about our documents? Suppose their contract that they have or some other biography or something that we want to keep with the author. Let's put documents. And we have a nice type of data for that would be attachments. There's other data types, but those are probably the main data types that you'd be concerned about. And I can't think, let's see, what other data types are there? Something I could think of. I suppose number of books they wrote, that might be interesting, but I could count that by just looking at the books table. Yes, no, whether they're still writing or something, we'll leave that alone for now. So you will be given some instructions, creating a table, and being told use the appropriate data types. And now we have our data type selected. Let's go ahead and go to Datasheet View and fill in some information about some authors. So we have our field names, author ID, auto number, and primary key. And then the rest, notice I didn't have anything to do with the field size in any of these yet. That's more of a detail that probably won't worry about. Now when we go to Datasheet View, it'll ask me to save the table. Let's give the name author as our table. And let's go ahead and just for practice, let's name some author. Joe, that's Smith will be the last name. Joe, and give it some fake address. And we'll give them a pay rate of $100 an hour. The authors, this is a highly paid author. So just entering some data, and I can skip some fields because back in Design View I didn't make anything required. Perhaps for a little practice, which would probably be important, let's go ahead and give the default state to be Iowa. I click on the state and choose default value of Iowa, and we'll go with a short text. And just like we did in the book, let's go ahead and make the field size of state limited to 2 characters. And we'll make the default for zip 52001. And let's see, pay rate. We'll make the default pay rate to be $100. I can always come back and adjust my settings in my author table. Go back to Datasheet View, saving my changes. It'll warn me, hey, if I change the size of the state, yeah, it's shortening it. And I could enter more authors. So we created an author table and made a few entries. Skipped some fields. I can enter a birthday. Let's see, that wouldn't be this year. Let's make up a birthday. 11/18/1961. Famous date. And an email, jsmith@gmail.com. Okay, so we have our author table. Now let's create a books table. We're going to create two books or 2 tables, and then we will relate them. So I'm going to close the author table. In the test, you will be asked, I think, to make 3 entries or something into your table that you'll be asked to create. So create the table, enter some data. And always close the tables when you're done with them, because Access is just not happy to work with things if they're open and try to do something else at the table. So close the table when we're done to make sure all our changes are saved. And now let's make a books table. Create table design. This is going to be the table keeping track of the books that they write. Field name, first one we always choose is book ID. Make that primary key. Auto number and primary key. Now, typical information you keep about a book. Well, a title, short text. Let's see, how about a synopsis of the book, a short paragraph, book synopsis. Since that could get longer than 255 characters, we'll let that be long text. Let's see, date published would probably be a good thing. And I think a date time would be a good data type for that. Let's see, what else? How about publisher? We'll leave that at short text. This brings up the thought that perhaps there should be a publisher table. But for our set, we're only going to have 2 tables. But it probably would make sense later to have a publisher table to have address, contact, location. But we'll just store that for now in the book data. So we may have redundant data, but we're okay. This is just a beginner database. Publisher, and typically it's publisher and location. Publisher, location. And leave that all as short text. So date published. Well, how about the base price? And bookstores can add to it. Let's give that a type of, instead of short text, let's give that type currency. And let's see, what's good something else. How about sample pages? Let's have that be attachments. That's the easiest thing. Have multiple attachments. Anything else that we would keep track of for a book title? What am I missing? Oh, how about this? Author ID. Since I like to have the keys up near the top, I'm going to insert a row just underneath book ID. Click on that and right click, insert row. And let's put author ID. It doesn't have to be at the top, but I think it's good practice to make that be up near the book ID. Now, one important thing here, since I know in the author table, the author ID is auto number, if I want to link this or relate it to my author table, related record in author table, it must be the same data type. Otherwise, we won't be able to establish that relationship. Since it's auto-numbered over there, it needs to be not auto-number, it needs to be a number. Because we are going to assign it an existing author, or we have a problem with data. We want to make sure that this was going to be related in the, there will be an existing author, and that'll have to do with our relationships. So I think that's enough for now. We have the book, who wrote it, title, synopsis, when it was published, the publisher, location, sample pages. I think that's pretty good for a book table. You're going to be asked to give a variety of data types, and the instructions will be try to be cleared. If it's not clear, like if it's a birthday, make sure you make it a date type. If it's a number having to do with cost, make sure to use currency. And now let's go and close this table and add some books.
Mr. Manning,
Yes, sir.
the book ID isn't changing the number. It's just saying for text. When I try to change the data type, I'm not really sure.
And then you take a look.
It's
James, I tried it and it sounds stupid, but I just retyped it all over again and tried it again and that worked for me.
Once you enter data in a table, you can't change the data type of any field. So you already went over and added an author. So did you see what those instructions said? Yeah, delete the field. Save the book table. Spelled address wrong.
yeah, I did.
Now you are in datasheet view, and you're doing you messed it up. You did all this stuff in datasheet view. You need to do it in design view. You're in datasheet view right now, and all you have is there's completely wrong. Well, actually, yeah, just delete all your data. You go ahead and delete all your rows of records. Select everything and delete all the data in your table. Do you understand you're in datasheet view right now?
Yeah, I know what I mean.
Just start. You can just start the table over or delete all your data. You want to give a better name than table 1 and table 2 as well. It's going to be kind of confusing. So while you're doing that, I will go back to mine here. Keep eyeing you there. And this is in design view. This is what you want to put in design view. You're still in datasheet view there. Oh no, never mind. No, Mary, you are in design view now. Now that you have this, we can switch in to datasheet view to make some entries into the table. Saving my table, and I'm going to call this the book table. Capital B if you like. Now, before I start entering information about authors and books, I do remember that I do have only one author so far, and if I want this data to be meaningful, this author better be an existing author whose ID is 1. So, at this point, I'm going to put in 1 for my author ID, and I can make up any title. How about Snakes of Ida? Slithery Things. Date published, we'll do 2020. Oh, apparently I can't just give it a year. Okay, let's do 1/1/2020. Okay, so a date, I can't just give it a year. Publisher, we'll do Emmaus University. They decided to publish about snakes. And a base price of $20. Just for fun, entering some data. Now I gotta be super careful entering data. If I don't give a proper author ID, things are gonna go wrong later. So I'm going to make sure I name an existing author. And in the exam, you'll be asked, or you'll be given, or be asked to enter some data, and be warned. Remember, this must be a number, and if you enter data, make sure you enter existing authors that match a number you've entered in an author table, or whatever table you're being asked to make. You'll be asked to make 2 tables in this similar manner. Okay. Now what we're going to do is close that table, saving any changes to my adjusting of the columns. And now let's go to Database Tools. You'll be asked to establish referential integrity between the 2 tables. So we're going to go to Database Tools, Relationships, and we already have these other tables there. We're going to add our 2 tables. We can right-click Add Tables, or click on Add Tables here. The tables going to add are the author and the book table. Now if you're starting a new database, those will be the only 2 tables to add. We won't have these other ones laying around still. They're completely unrelated to my Bible tables, but in order to establish referential integrity, remember what that means is when I refer to an author, it better be an existing author. I drag author ID to author ID in the author table. That establishes a relationship, meaning when I refer to an author ID, that means I'm looking for information in that entry for that author in the authors table. And we do want to enforce referential integrity, so we don't have a book that has a non-existent author. So I do click Enforce Referential Integrity, and it's author to author. And oh, I see I messed up. I have a capital A and little a. That's not a big deal, but it's kind of annoying. And we'll go ahead and cascade update if I change an author's ID, which I won't because I'm letting Access auto number it. Just in case I ever do, I'll make sure cascade update. And I click create. And if I have not entered bad data in my table, it will say, okay, I'll let you create that relationship. And from now on, it will not let me enter data that does not have an existing author. And you need to close the other tables. It's always a good idea, James, to close tables before you mess with relationships. So click OK and go close the book table. No, you're not going to delete it. You're going to close it. Just close the book table. There you go. Now do the relationship again. There you go. Drag author ID. There you go. And create. Oh, you need to make sure it's a number in both tables. It's an auto number in one table. It needs to be a number in the other table. So close the relationships. Go to design view of your author table. Make sure author ID in the book table, book table, author ID, make sure that is a number because it's going to relate to the other table. Data access doesn't let you relate short text to long text. Now go ahead and save the changes, and now go back and close both tables, and there you go, and now it should let you establish that relationship. There you go. Oh, you already entered bad data into your table. You are already referring to a non-existent author in one of your books. So check your book table, or have an author that has an ID 1. Check your authors table. What do you have in your authors table? And put one author, and he'll have an ID of 1. And then you'll be able to establish that relationship. Type in last name because the ID is auto number. You don't type anything there. There you go. Now that you have an author, you need to close the table. Now that you have an author that exists with ID 1, now it'll let you establish a relationship. Look at that. Usually, you design it and set up the relationships before you enter any data. So it's better and less frustrating to actually have the data in there or have the design and then start entering data. So that's kind of what you're going to be asked to do. You're going to be given two tables with some instructions about how they're related. You'll be asked to create the two tables, establish the relationship, and then enter some data into the tables. Then you'll be asked to create a query or two having to do with the two tables that you just created. So let's choose a query. Say we'll have a query. Let's choose a query that lists authors from Iowa. So let's create a query that lists the authors from Iowa. So query design. And I don't need to have all these property sheets open. We add the table authors and books. Actually, not books. We're not asking about their books, so we don't need the book table in our query. Authors from Iowa. Now we should probably show their last name and first name, and maybe the city that they're in. And since we're going to query on whether they're in Iowa or not, I better have the state in there too. And then in the instructions, they would be better instructions if they said clearly, list the name and city of authors in Iowa. That would probably be a better instruction. But we kind of gathered that listing the authors in Iowa. Right now, if I don't have any criteria, I can run this query. And I see there's Smith Joe. He happens to actually be in Iowa. But to have the query only list authors in Iowa, I need to put IA in the state. IA. And it can be lower or uppercase. And if I click off of that, it will show quotes around it. And I run it. Whether or not I have results in the query doesn't matter. If I say have a query that lists all the authors in Minnesota, I could put MN there. That would be correct. Even though when I ran it, I did not get any results. Because there are no authors in my table so far that are from Minnesota. But this would be the correct answer for create a query that lists all authors in Minnesota. So if you have the correct query, don't worry if you don't get any results, because we know that none of our authors are from Minnesota. And I can verify that by opening the authors table and seeing, yeah, there is only one from Iowa. So that would be one query. And let's go ahead and save that query. We'll call that from Iowa. Or maybe we'll call it authors in Iowa. Let's do another query, just for practice. You'll be given instructions something like, list the name and cost of all books costing more than $20. So query design, since it has to do with the books table, let's go ahead and click the book. Books greater than $20. Well, I do want to know the name of the book, so let's go ahead and put the book title. And since I need to base my query on the price, let's put base price. Without anything without any criteria, I can run the query and see that I do get, there's one book, it's exactly $20. But if the question said list all books greater than $20, I would put greater than 20 here. And if I click off of that, it doesn't put any quotes around anything because we're dealing with numbers, and greater than 20 is valid criteria for numbers. Greater symbol and 20. And I view data sheet. Am I going to see anything? I'm not going to see anything because I know there's only one book in there and it costs exactly 20. So in my query results, I get no titles. I just see the default for if I'm going to add a new book. So that doesn't mean I have a wrong query. That just means the data in there is not, there are no books greater than 20. But if I did put greater than or equal to 20 by greater equal right there, now if I run it, got to insert view this on. If I do greater equal 20, I should see my book. Yeah, it does show up because it's exactly $20. So when I have a number criteria, I use the mathematical comparison operator. We'll go ahead and save this query. We'll call it expensive books. Now, just for a little more practice with queries, you'll be asked, I think, to create about 3 of them, different types. Let's create another one having to do with 2 tables. This time, back in our Bible database query, we want to list Psalm 23. So, I already have my Bible. I have my ASV Bible. Remember, that has the text of all the verses of the ASV Bible. I have the book name of every book in the Bible. Suppose I want to list Psalm 23. I can create, query design, and I add the ASV Bible that has the text and the book name table that has the name of the book. Notice in the ASV Bible, all I know is the ID of my book, or the number of the book. So if I want the name of the book, I need the book name table. But if I need to know the chapter and number and get the texts, I need the ASV Bible table. Well, let's list the book name, the chapter, verse, and the text. Well, what would my criteria be? Well, the criteria would be that my book name is PSALM, and I can't remember whether there's a S or F, or if that's singular. I will leave that as star, Psalm star, chapter 23, and just to make sure that it is listed in order, I will sort by the verse number ascending. Even though I don't think I need to, but just to make sure it sorts it in the proper verse order. This will give me the entire content of Psalm chapter 23. Let's see if we actually get that result by clicking View, Datasheet View. Look at that, Psalm 23 from my Bible database. So 2 criteria on the same line because I want it to be in the book of Psalms and chapter 23. And I do notice that it is plural Psalms. So if I wanted to, instead of like Psalm star, I could have done Psalms. And I wouldn't have to have, and it wouldn't put the like in there. And I would get the same thing. I could have even just done PS star, and it would have also found it because that's the only Bible book that begins with PS. So a query to list Psalm 23. Let's just do one more practice one that was in that assignment, and then we'll get on to some Excel practice. I'm going to take a quick look at the assignment in the Bible database assignment. We'll just do one more of that. And if you work on that Bible database for, you want credit for that, just submit what you have for the Bible database. Let's see, Access Bible Project, let's see here. All verses containing all 3 words, Father, Son, and Spirit. I'm going to save this one as Psalm 23. I'm going to close it. Save the query, give the name Psalm 23. Now let's write a query that finds all the verses that have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit all in the same verse. So I do create query, design. Again, I want the name of the book and the text of the book, so that would be ASV Bible. Not that book, they have wrong table. The book name table. It's my Bible database. I want to see the name of the book, the chapter, verse and the text. But in the text, I'm looking for contents of the text, and I want to have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in the same verse. Well, so that will mean the verse contains star, Father, star. Remember, if there could be something around it, I want to put star, the word I'm looking for, and then star after it. And I will use the word and because I also want to have Son in there somewhere. And I also want to have Spirit in there somewhere. If I click off of that, let's see if it puts quotes around the proper things. And I think it's going to put a like in there. Yep, it adds the likes and the quotes around everything. Multiple requirements because I'm looking for a verse that does contain all of these things at the same time. Now, do you think we're going to get any verses with all three in one verse? Let's find out. I run the query. There are 2 verses that have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in the same verse. And some query like this, I challenge the Logos people or the Logos software. I don't know if Logos software can do this. I haven't tried ands in searches, but finding only the verses that contain all 3 in one verse. And there's the query for that. Now, even if you don't get all the queries done for the Bible database, you'll get some credit if you complete what you have and turn in. You'll get full credit if you complete those queries that I asked for on your own. That's in the Access Bible Project. And I'm going to save this one as Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And I'm going to close my Bible database because I want to get going, giving you some practice with an Excel project, which you have in your assignments for extra credit. You have an assignment there called Excel Practice for the Final and Earn Extra Credit. And all you have to do is follow along right now and turn in what we complete, and you'll get some extra credit. Such easy stuff here. So I'm going to start Excel. And I'm just going to work, in this case, I'm just going to work on some of the hardest problems on the final. First one I'm going to work on is an if formula. That's often missed. There will be one if formula. Let's give you a sample if formula. Let's see. How about if I meet my quota? Here's the quota. And the bonus. And let's see here, my hours. The statement you'll be given is, if I meet, instead of, let's call this, how about with this? If I work more than 40 hours, I receive if I work more than my quota of hours, I receive the bonus. If I work more than my quota of hours, I receive the bonus. So let's put in a field for what my bonus is going to be, or whether I have my bonus. And that's where we put our if formula. But first, let's just put some sample numbers in here. Let's just say, what is the quota? Well, let's just for now make the quota be 40. And let's have the bonus be $100. And I have worked, let's say I have worked 39 hours. Should I receive my bonus? No. So let's find out if the if formula works by now establishing our if formula. So now remember, the format of the if formula is, it goes like this. It goes if, and then some logical tests. comma, what I get if that is true, true value, or false value, or value if false. That's the syntax or the form of the if formula. So your question will be, give the if formula that represents that statement. If I work more than my quota of hours, I receive the bonus. So what we start with would be equal if. What is the logical test? I work more than my quota of hours. Well, there's my number of hours. That would be D3. Work more than my quota. Well, there's my quota of 40. So greater than B3. Because remember, I might type something more other than 40 there, so I don't want to put a number 40. I want to put whatever is my quota, comma. What do I get if I have worked more than that? Well, I get here. I get my bonus that's in C3. Now, something that's not stated in the statement is what happens if I don't work more than my quota? Well, implicit in that is I get nothing if I don't work more than my quota. So I put 0 for the third option. If I don't put 0 there, I'll get a word false rather than the number 0. I hit enter to find out, do I get my bonus? And, oh, I don't get my bonus. But look, if I come back and say, make my hours 40. Oh, I don't get my bonus. Let's make my hours 41. There, I got my bonus. So the if formula is working. That is one of the harder ones, the if formula. Let's do another one here. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some that are missed. Let's do the, let's see, the if formula. Conditional formatting. Let's just add some numbers. Let's just make some simple numbers. We'll have negative and positive numbers. We'll do -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And we'll shade these just so we know what numbers we want to apply formatting to. And you'll be given a problem something like this. Apply conditional formatting to the shaded numbers. Let's make them red font if negative, green background otherwise. So let's first of all select the numbers that I want to apply conditional formatting to and go to conditional formattings. And what do we want? Red font if negative. Okay, so let's go ahead. New rule. Format cells that contain. And let's see, cell value less than 0. That's the definition of negative, is less than 0. And the format for that will be format, font, color, red. And OK. And OK. And I see immediately those two turn red. How do I apply the green background otherwise? Well, let's go back to conditional formatting with them still selected. New rule. Format cells that contain. Cell value greater than or equal to 0. That will be the condition. If they're not negative, they are greater than or equal to 0. And in the format, for greater than or equal to 0, I will choose a fill of green. And I click OK. That's what it will look like. If it's greater than or equal to 0, I click OK and see if it works. Look at that. You can apply two conditional formattings to the same set of cells. If I go to manage rules, I'll see the two rules are there. Greater than or equal to 0 has a fill of green. Less than 0, the font will be red. It'll be one or the other because of the way I have my rules established. Conditional formatting. Now let's do one more very important item on your test. It will be the marriage saving formula. Standard accounting format, but I like to call it the marriage saving formula. It is your beginning balance. You'll be given a budget table with more than just one thing in there, but let's just say our beginning balance is $1,000. We'll make it $10,000. Our expenses are actually, we typically do income first. We'll do income. We've totaled some income. Let's say our income is $2,000. Our expenses total to $1,900. What is our ending balance? What is the formula for ending balance? It's a marriage saving formula. It is equal to beginning balance up there in B12 plus income minus expenses. Guarantee you that formula will be there. There will be more things to put in your budget table. You'll have several types of income there that you'll have to give the total of. There'll be several expenses that you'll be totaling up. But then in the ending balance, you'll be asked for the marriage saving formula. What is the ending balance given your beginning balance, your income and expenses? And you could have done that by hand. Say, yeah, I've spent $100 less than I earned, so I should have $100 more. Now remember, one more thing is going to be in the next month beginning balance is going to be equal to the previous month's ending balance. You'll be asked to fill a table. Next month beginning balance is a previous month's ending balance. And I can refer to that table or that item by its address. And one last thing here we have time for, absolute referencing. Remember the dollars, absolute referencing. Some easy question might be absolute reference to cell A1. What's the absolute reference to cell A1? Is equal $A $1. That is an absolute reference, meaning whenever I move any or copy a formula, it will not move its reference to cell A1. Whenever you have the dollars in there, remember that makes that address part of it stick to what it is if I'm copying my formula. And we are out of time. A simple, easy extra credit. Save that, upload to Schoology, and you'll get credit for working little practice on your Excel skills. And just as a last minute thing, I'm checking the schedule here for finals. The final schedule. And I see the final schedule. This class is listed as 8 o'clock Wednesday or 10 o'clock Wednesday. You're welcome to come to either section if it's more convenient for you to come to one or the other. There's some spare computers, one broken one now, but you'll be able to come if you'd like to get it done early or later. You can come to either one.
Where do we submit it?
Oh, in Schoology, there's an assignment called Excel Extra Credit. You don't see it? It should be, yeah, Excel practice. Yeah, just turn it in there and you'll get extra credit. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This was recorded, so I will upload that.